What happens when a sitting vice president walks into what he thinks is a friendly interview, only to face the most aggressive questioning of his political career? Tonight, we're diving into the explosive confrontation that left J.D. Vance storming off Piers Morgan's set, and trust me, you won't believe how this unfolds. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, because this gets absolutely wild. The studio lights were blazing as J.D. Vance settled into the guest chair across from Piers Morgan, expecting the usual softball questions about policy and political strategy. The vice president had done this dance 1,000 times before, but tonight would be different. Tonight, Piers had other plans. Vice President Vance, thank you for joining us. Piers began with that trademark smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. I want to start with something that's been bothering me, and I think bothering a lot of Americans. Your transformation from Trump critic to Trump loyalist, it's been quite remarkable to witness. Vance shifted slightly, his media training kicking in. Well, Piers, I think what people saw was someone who is willing to evolve their thinking. Based on results, President Trump delivered on his promises, and I recognize that, evolved. Piers leaned forward, his voice taking on that sharp edge viewers knew all too well. Is that what we're calling it? Because I have some quotes here from your past that suggest something quite different. You called Trump America's Hitler. You said he was reprehensible. Those are strong words for someone you now call your running mate. The camera caught the flash of irritation across Vance's face. Piers, I think you're taking those comments out of context. That was before I understood the full scope of what President Trump was trying to accomplish for the American people. Out of context, Piers's eyebrows shot up. JD, I'm reading your exact words. You wrote in private messages, and I quote, "I go back and forth between thinking Trump is a cynical asshole or that he's America's Hitler. How exactly is that out of context?" The studio fell silent, except for the hum of cameras. Vance's jaw tightened as he processed what had just happened. Those were private communications, never meant for public consumption. Where did you get that? Vance's voice had dropped to barely above a whisper. Does it matter where I got it? What matters is whether you stand by those words, or if you're going to continue this charade that you've always been a Trump supporter. Vance's hands gripped the armrests of his chair. Those were private thoughts from years ago. Piers, people are allowed to change their minds when presented with new information. New information, Piers laughed, but there was no humor in it. What new information could possibly transform someone from thinking a person is literally Hitler to becoming their vice president? What could be that compelling? The results speak for themselves, Vance shot back, his composure starting to crack. Economic growth, border security, America First policies that actually worked. Or maybe, Piers paused dramatically. Maybe what changed wasn't your opinion of Trump, but your ambition. Maybe you saw which way the wind was blowing and decided to hitch your wagon to his star. Regardless of your personal convictions, the accusation hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Vance's face flushed red, and for a moment, it looked like he might explode right there on camera. That's completely unfair, and you know it, Vance said through gritted teeth. I've been consistent in my support for policies that benefit working-class Americans. Consistent. Piers pulled out another sheet of paper. Let's talk about consistency. Here's an email you sent to a colleague where you wrote, "Trump makes people I care about afraid. Immigrants, Muslims, etc. Because of this, I find him reprehensible." Tell me, Vice President, what happened to your care for those people? Vance was visibly struggling now, his political training warring with his genuine anger. You're cherry, picking private communications to create a narrative that simply isn't true. I'm revealing the truth that you've been hiding from the American people. Piers fired back. You stood on stages and told voters you believed in Donald Trump, that you trusted his judgment, that you shared his vision. But privately, you thought he was reprehensible and compared him to Hitler. Which J.D. Vance should Americans believe? The one sitting in front of you right now, Vance snapped. The one who has worked tirelessly alongside President Trump to deliver results for American families. But that's just it, isn't it? You're not delivering results, you're delivering performances. This entire conversation is a performance. Your entire political persona is a performance designed to hide who you really are. The words hit Vance like physical blows. His carefully constructed facade was crumbling in real time, and millions of viewers were watching it happen. I don't have to sit here and listen to this character assassination, Vance said, his voice rising. Character assassination. Pierce's voice matched his intensity. I'm using your own words, JD, your own private thoughts and communications. If that's character assassination, then you're the one holding the weapon. Vance stood up abruptly, his chair rolling backward. This interview is over. Oh, we're just getting started, Piers called after him as Vance began removing his microphone. Sit back down, Vice President. The American people deserve answers. The American people deserve better than this ambush journalism, Vance replied, his hands shaking with rage as he fumbled with the mic pack. What they deserve is honesty from their elected officials, something you seem incapable of providing. Vance stopped moving, his back still to Piers. The silence stretched on for what felt like an eternity, the tension so thick it was almost suffocating. Slowly, he turned around, and the look in his eyes made everyone in the studio take a collective step back. You want honesty, Piers? Vance's voice was ice-cold now, all pretense of political civility abandoned. Let's talk about honesty. Let's talk about how you obtained private communications that were never meant for public consumption. Let's talk about the ethics of ambush journalism. Piers smiled that predatory smile again. Oh, now we're concerned about ethics. That's rich coming from someone who built their entire political career on a foundation of lies about their own beliefs. I've never lied about my beliefs, Vance shot back, taking a step closer to Piers's desk. I've evolved. I've grown. I've learned. That's what human beings do. Human beings, yes. Politicians, apparently not. You see, JD, what fascinates me is how perfectly your evolution aligns with your political ambitions. It's almost like you calculated exactly what you needed to say to get ahead. That's absolutely ridiculous. Vance's voice was getting louder now, his composure completely shattered. I genuinely came to respect what President Trump accomplished for this country. What he accomplished? You mean like the January 6th insurrection that you once called disgraceful? Or are we going to pretend you've evolved on that too? The mention of January 6th hit Vance like a physical blow. His face went white, then read again in rapid succession. That's completely different, he stammered. Is it? Because I have another communication here where you wrote, and I quote, what Trump did today is disgraceful. Attacking the Capitol, encouraging violence, it's inexcusable. But then, just months later, you were on campaign stages defending him. Which version of J.D. Vance was telling the truth? You're taking things out of context again, Vance said weakly, but the fight was going out of him. Context. Piers stood up now, matching Vance's energy. The context is that you wrote these things in real time as events were happening. These weren't calculated political statements. These were your genuine reactions, your gut feelings about what you were witnessing. People can change their minds. Piers, it's not a crime. No, but lying to voters is. Pretending to be something you're not is. Building a career on deception is. Vance's hands were clenched into fists at his sides. I have never deceived anyone about who I am or what I stand for. Really, so when you stood at campaign rallies and talked about your unwavering support for Donald Trump, that wasn't deception. When you told voters you believed in his character and leadership, knowing full well you'd privately called him reprehensible, that wasn't deception. I came to believe in his policies, Vance insisted, but his voice lacked conviction. His policies, or your political future. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you sold your soul for a shot at power. That's enough, Vance exploded. You don't know anything about my motivations or my character. I know what your own words reveal about your character. I know that you're willing to say anything, be anything, if it gets you ahead politically. And I know that you're a has-been British television host desperately trying to stay relevant. By destroying American politicians with stolen private communications, the insult hit its mark. Piers's eyes flashed with anger, but he maintained his composure. Has been JD? I've been doing this longer than you've been in politics. I've interviewed prime ministers, presidents, celebrities, and criminals. And you know what they all have in common? When they're caught in their lies, they all react exactly like you're reacting right now, with anger, deflection, and personal attacks. I'm not lying about anything, Vance said, but his voice wavered. Then explain to me how someone goes from thinking Donald Trump is America's Hitler to becoming his vice. president without compromising their principles. Walk me through that transformation. Vance opened his mouth to respond, then closed it again. The question hung in the air like a challenge he couldn't meet. "I'll wait," Piers said, settling back into his chair with theatrical patience. The silence stretched on. Vance looked around the studio, at the cameras, at the crew, as if searching for an escape route that didn't exist. "It's not that simple," he finally said. "Oh, but it is that simple, JD. You either believed what you wrote in those private messages, or you didn't. If you believed Trump was reprehensible and compared him to Hitler, then becoming his running mate makes you a hypocrite. If you didn't believe those things, then writing them makes you a liar. Which is it?" "You're trying to trap me with false choices," Vance accused. "I'm trying to get you to tell the truth, something you seem constitutionally incapable of doing. The truth is that I serve the American people to the best of my ability every single day. The truth is that you serve yourself to the best of your ability every single day. The American people are just collateral damage in your pursuit of power." Vance's face contorted with rage. "How dare you question my service to this country? How dare you lie to this country and then act offended when someone calls you on it? I'm not going to stand here and be lectured about honesty by someone who makes their living destroying people on television. I make my living holding powerful people accountable. Something the American media seems to have forgotten how to do. Accountable. You call this accountability. This is a hit job. This is journalism. Real questions about real inconsistencies in your public statements versus your private beliefs. These are private communications that were obtained illegally. Were they obtained illegally? Do you have proof of that? Or is that just another convenient accusation to avoid answering the real questions?" Vance fell silent again, realizing he'd walked into another trap. He had no proof of how Piers obtained the communications, and making accusations without evidence would only make him look more desperate. "The questions remain, JD. How do you reconcile your private thoughts about Trump with your public support? How do you explain becoming the running mate of someone you once compared to Hitler?" "I don't owe you any explanations," Vance said finally. "You don't owe me anything, but you owe the American people everything. They voted for you based on what you told them about yourself. If what you told them was false, don't they deserve to know that?" The weight of the moment seemed to settle on Vance's shoulders. He looked older somehow, defeated. "You know what, Piers?" Vance's voice had taken on a dangerous quiet that made everyone in the studio tense up. "I've had enough of this. You want to know the truth? The real truth." Piers leaned forward, sensing something big was coming. "All ears, Vice President. The truth is that politics is a dirty business filled with compromises that people like you could never understand. You sit in your comfortable studio throwing stones at people who actually have to make impossible decisions every single day. So you admit it was a compromise. Supporting Trump despite believing he was reprehensible. Everything in politics is a compromise?" Vance exploded. "You think I'm the first person to set aside personal feelings for the greater good? You think I'm the first politician to support someone they didn't initially like because they believed it would benefit the country? The greater good, JD, you called him Hitler. That's not about not liking someone. That's about believing they're a fundamental threat to democracy. And maybe I was wrong about that. Maybe my initial reactions were based on media hysteria and partisan talking points rather than reality. Or maybe your current position is based on personal ambition rather than reality," Piers countered. "Because here's what I find interesting about your evolution. It happened to coincide perfectly with Trump's rise in the polls and your own political aspirations." Vance laughed bitterly. "You really think this is all about ambition? You think I wanted this? You think I wanted to have every word I've ever written scrutinized by people like you? I think you wanted power more than you wanted integrity." "Integrity." Vance's voice cracked with emotion now. "Let me tell you about integrity, Piers. Integrity is working 18-hour days trying to fix a broken immigration system. Integrity is fighting for policies that help working families, even when the media attacks you for it. Integrity is serving your country, even when hack journalists try to destroy you with gotcha questions. Integrity is telling voters the truth about who you are and what you believe, not crafting a persona designed to get you elected. You want to know what I believe? I believe in America. I believe in putting American workers first. I believe in securing our borders and restoring law and order. Those aren't persona talking points. Those are genuine convictions that you happened to develop right around the time Trump became the frontrunner for the Republican nomination. My political evolution has been consistent with my core values of putting America first. Your political evolution has been consistent with your career aspirations. Nothing more? Vance slammed his hand down on Piers's desk, the sound echoing through the studio like a gunshot. I am sick and tired of having my motives questioned by people who have never served a day in their lives. And I am sick and tired of politicians who think their service gives them a free pass to lie to the American people. I have never lied to the American people. You lied when you pretended to be a Trump supporter from the beginning. You lied when you told voters you believed in his character and leadership. You lied when you said you shared his vision for America. I came to share his vision for America. At what exact moment did someone you thought was reprehensible and compared to Hitler suddenly become someone whose vision you shared? The question hung in the air like a sword over Vance's head. His mouth opened and closed repeatedly, but no words came out. I'm waiting, JD. Tell me about that moment of conversion. It wasn't a single moment, Vance said weakly. It was a gradual process. Gradual. Your private communications suggest your feelings about Trump were pretty clear. Cut. There's no gradual evolution documented anywhere. One day you're calling him reprehensible, the next day you're campaigning for him. People can change. Peers. People. Yes. Opportunists just change their masks. That's it. Vance ripped off his remaining microphone equipment and threw it on the floor. This interview is over. I'm done with your character assassination. The only one assassinating your character is you, JD. I'm just reading your own words back to you. You're a disgrace to journalism, Vance spat as he headed toward the studio exit. And you're a disgrace to public service, Piers called after him, running away when the questions get tough. How very vice presidential of you. Vance stopped dead in his tracks and whirled around. You want tough questions? Here's a tough question for you. How do you sleep at night, knowing you make your living destroying people who are actually trying to make a difference in the world? I sleep just fine, thanks. How do you sleep at night, knowing you built your entire political career on lies? I built my career on service to the American people. You built your career on saying whatever you thought would get you ahead, regardless of whether you actually believed it. And you built your career on tearing down anyone who dares to. Enter public service. You're a parasite feeding off the political process. Better a parasite than a fraud. The insult was the final straw. Vance charged back toward Piers's desk, his face purple with rage. Security personnel who had been standing by the cameras suddenly moved into position, ready to intervene if necessary. You call me a fraud one more time and see what happens, Vance snarled. Or what? You'll have me arrested. Use your government position to silence critics. Very democratic of you, Vice President. The threat of authoritarianism implicit in Piers' words seemed to snap Vance back to reality. He looked around the studio, at the cameras still rolling, at the security guards ready to restrain him, and the full weight of what was happening hit him. He was the Vice President of the United States, and he was about to get into a physical altercation with a television host on live television. This is exactly what I'm talking about, Piers said quietly, his voice cutting through the tension. When confronted with your own contradictions, your own words, your instinct is to lash out, to threaten, to silence. That's not the behavior of someone comfortable with their own integrity. Vance stood frozen, caught between his rage and his recognition of how badly this was going for him. The American people are watching, JD. They're seeing who you really are when the pressure is on. They're seeing how you react when someone holds up a mirror to your political transformation. Without another word, Vance turned and walked out of the studio. The sound of his footsteps echoed in the silence until the heavy door slammed shut behind him. Piers turned back to the camera, his expression serious. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Vice President J.D. Vance, apparently unable to answer basic questions about his own stated beliefs and political evolution. Make of that what you will. The studio fell into stunned silence as the reality of what had just happened sank in. The Vice President of the United States had just stormed off a television interview rather than answer questions about his own words. So there you have it. the explosive confrontation that ended with J.D. Vance walking off set rather than defending his political transformation. What did you think of Piers Morgan's questioning? Was he too aggressive, or exactly what we need more of in political journalism? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe for more incredible political moments like this one. What other political interview would you want to see get this intense?